Anti-Trump social justice warriors are spreading their message of inclusion, unity, and equality all across America by taking to the streets to light trash cans on fire, smash police cars, and beat the hell out of Trump supporters. Why? Because their humanitarian women's rights hero, Hillary Clinton, whose husband abuses women, whose foundation helps wealthy pedophiles get immunity, and whose biggest campaign promise was that she'd launch us into World War III, lost to the object of their hate, Donald Trump, and now they're afraid. They fear that he's a racist who's going to abolish all civil rights for minorities. This despite the fact that back in 1999, he was honored by the Rainbow Push Coalition for 30 years of inclusion and helping African American communities. They fear that he's a homophobe who's going to drone strike all gays. This despite the fact that his mentor was a closeted gay man with HIV who long trusted Trump with his secret. And perhaps their biggest fear is that everything Barack Obama ever did will be wiped out of existence. This despite the fact that Trump has already openly stated that he's going to keep some aspects of Obamacare. This is not a defense of Trump, it's a condemnation of the mainstream media, because while they pretend to want healing, every story they report only further fuels the anger and encourages more protesting, or what any normal person would call rioting. Unity is not only what they don't want, division is what they need, is what their very existence depends on. This and much more on this 11th episode of the Propaganda Report. This is the Propaganda Report. I'm Brad Binkley here with Monica Perez. Monica, how you doing today?
I'm okay. I'm a little under the weather, so I might be a little slower on the draw than usual, but I'm going to do my best. And maybe I have post-election stress disorder.
Yes, that's. I heard that back in 2004 when George Bush and John Kerry, right? Yeah, there's clinics because people were so broken up about George Bush that clinics sprung up, and that became a business for a therapist.
I went to exercise. I went to a Pilates class Wednesday morning right after the election, and the whole place was shuttered. It was completely closed down. And I honestly thought that they were so bereft that they're actually grieving and had to close the place down. I did later realize they just changed the schedule, but I think there is a real phenomenon of, it went from, I think they went in like the reverse order of the stages of grief. They went from feeling despondent, whatever, to anger.
Oh,
I think that's what we're seeing now is the anger phase, which seems to be out of order.
Absolutely. That a couple of my friends who they do theater and their rehearsals were canceled just because people couldn't deal with it, and there were people who were mourning, and at a show they had, there were people meeting up at the bar and writing letters to Hillary.
Gosh.
It was crazy.
I was absolutely gobsmacked. I'm not going to pretend like I wasn't like, what the heck is going on here? Because I just did not see past what I was told, which was she was going to be the next president. I could not see past it. But for me, the shock and confusion and cognitive dissonance was trying to figure out what pieces of like how the world works, like what I don't see about the puzzle pieces, not like, oh my gosh, he's going to cut down all the trees and put all the immigrants in FEMA camps. Like, that's not what I was thinking. It's just like, wow, what is going on here? Because Hillary really did not, she seemed to be absolutely blown away by this. I do not think she was in on any behind the scenes shenanigans that might have been going on.
Right.
But so I was shocked too, but not in the kind of like the way, I mean, these people are reminding me just of like after Obama was elected, and he did change the world. I mean, Trump might change the world in a way nobody really expects or maybe even wants, but people's shock at Obama's election, I think, is similar to this.
Oh, it's absolutely. People are in shock. And I don't care. I mean, I really, if you could have voted for your foot, your cat, it doesn't matter. As long as you didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, I don't care. But it is hilarious.
I voted for none of the above.
Yeah. You wrote in none of the above?
I just didn't see anything that, no, you couldn't. There was a list of approved write-in candidates in Georgia. There were 17 approved candidates. And I vetted every single one of them, and there was not one that stood with my conscience.
Well,
so I couldn't write in Ron Paul.
I think I
mean, I guess I could have, but yeah, that would have been on them anyway.
Just draw it on the screen with a marker.
I took my crayon out and made a big.
You might get arrested, and put in Guantanamo Bay for messing with those machines.
Yeah, the what I call rubbing the Buddha's belly, like going in there making a wish,
yeah, exactly.
throwing a penny into the well. But this, I think that this was driven by a very sophisticated, like probably even the reporters didn't realize what they were doing, media program of just constantly telling you that he was the underdog, constantly telling you that he was the outsider, which they could have completely outed him for not being an outsider by saying just some of the stuff you touched on in the last minute. There's so much. I actually just posted some links to websites that were ahead of it, saw it coming, and had all the dirt on the CIA connections of Roy Cohn and all that stuff, which I had read, but I just was like, no.
Yeah. Hillary came out to.
So I gotta get.
Oh, I was gonna say,
I gotta tweak my truth dog.
Yeah, well, it's tough with so much propaganda coming from all different angles. It can be overwhelming sometimes.
Well, that's the genius of the propaganda and the disinfo and everything. It is really, truly. I mean, I went to Harvard. I went to Stanford. Not that means anything. I actually think you get brainwashed and dumber, at that level. But, I had to take standardized tests. Like, I am capable of critical thinking, and I should be able to sort through this stuff. And I'm telling you, there's at least a whole nother layer of this.
Yeah, they try to inject so much emotion on both ends that even it's hard to not be affected emotionally. They try super hard to make you take a side, to make you take one of two sides. They try to narrow it down, and they make you hate. And that's the goal of propaganda.
Yeah, but everything is a dialectic, and I noticed it. So I noticed it with the alt-right thing, and there's always some, it's always the dialectic or the sides taken are always based on some truth, like some real, like a reaction against PC, whatever. So it's so, if you look at the internet, you think like half of the sites are alternative against the official narrative, and some of them are obvious disinfo, but always when you drill down, they're always playing into some dialectic, and that's where you have to watch out, because that's how they control your I could see myself like just being immersed in an official narrative that made sense to me. And I think those things are just spoon fed to you. I think that it's more complex. You're just not going to find it on like 50% of the alternative media.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. So Clinton today, she told her top donors that it was Comey's fault, that he's why she lost.
I can't. I think I'm a little shell shocked. I can't pull that one apart. That Comey thing seemed like a ridiculous farce. Like he was playing just as ham-handed and obvious a role as the rest of the actors in this reality show. The only thing that I think is really, really blew my mind is that I saw the Trump-Clinton, what was clearly a connection. They were connected for a long time. And I thought Trump obviously is the shill for Hillary, because she would never do it and lose on purpose. Like she just doesn't have the energy for that, she's just, so then I realized when it was her, because I think you think this Trump was the plan B. I actually think he was probably the plan A, and that she just didn't know it. And that's why it was so plausible. So the Comey thing, I don't know how it plays into it, but anything she says about why she lost, I doubt. I mean, my guess is she knows now what happened, and it's
right.
Not
well, I have a theory on why she said that, and this kind of plays in with a little bit of what.
If she's saying anything, I mean, my guess is she's going to be on Quaaludes for the next 2 years.
It has been for 10 years, probably.
Oh, maybe, but I just can't see her getting out of bed after that.
Yeah. Like Rocky at the end of Rocky 1. So
I can't. I think. Yeah.
I have a bunch of stories that the media has talked. They've been talking about unity, and this country has to heal. We have to. It's such bull. They don't want. They rely on division. If the country were healed, nobody would watch.
Well, they're saying. I was watching Don Lemon talk about the country healing, and in the background, all the pictures of the protesters, and like the Cal exit people, and so the cognitive dissonance in itself is a powerful, like, emotional weapon. So he's sitting there saying, even though this is really, really awful, we want you to be unified and heal. And then there's the Cal exit people in the background, who, by the way, could just resort to the 10th Amendment and exercise states' rights. They do not have to secede. They can if they want to.
Yeah, they're going to succeed and then establish a big government is what they're going to do.
Yes, right. So I see what you're saying about the CNN thing. It's so weird because I watch them like, well, they're saying they want unity, but they're playing these protests nonstop in the background. Whereas when I went to Fox, they weren't doing it like that.
Right. It's not, it is a different approach, but I got from about 4 different networks. I have headlines of stories that all play into this idea of keep these protests going and keep this division going. And I just want to go through some of these headlines. One of them, the Comey one with about Hillary Clinton saying that it was him. See, I think that plays right into this whole these they're not protests. Let's be honest. They're riots. They're smashing cop cars. They're beating.
Are they?
Yes.
Are they really? I've been sick, so I'm really super sick, and I can't.
In LA were arrested. I mean, and they get mad when you call it a riot. That's because you're beating up people and beating up cops and lighting. They're storming out into the highway.
Is it Soros funded? Is it?
There's definitely some organization going on here.
Well, can I interject? I just want to say this chaos thing. We did maybe the first or second one of the first few propaganda reports on the strategy of tension, and one of the reason I was absolutely convinced that Hillary was the heir apparent, the chosen one, the single reason was I felt like she was the only person who could, or she would be of the two, the one who could silence the anti-war left. So when she invaded the final stage or whatever of the conquest of the Middle East with troops on the ground and everything, that if you didn't have a Democrat, you would have riots in the street, like with Bush. But then I was thinking, oh my gosh, we did the strategy of tension. It's really morphed into or evolved into or escalated into a strategy of chaos. They are actively pursuing funding protest and chaos, from the Bundy Ranch thing to Black Lives Matter to the deplorables to everything. You and I talked about how after the election there was going to be conflict. They were setting us up for it. They wanted civil unrest. And now I realize that they like it. So if you have anti-war protesters in the mix, who cares? They would probably even be discredited by all the other rioters they're surrounded by, because they're getting all these protests out. They could have protests for the whole riots for the whole 4 years, and that would really give Trump carte blanche to do anything, because you're not really paying attention to the details.
Right. People will be protesting for so many different causes that the protesters will become indistinguishable from each other. On one side of the street, we'll have the white liberals protesting. On the other side of the street, we'll have Black Lives Matters tearing through the middle of the streets. We'll have feminists protesting. We're going to run out of room for protesters to protest.
But you know what makes me crazy, though, is that this would be, just like this last year or two, it was a perfect opportunity for the libertarians and whatever that was hijacked. This is a great opportunity to show, to just communicate with these people, with people on the left. The Bill of Rights is there for all of this, to protect you at the smaller levels from a guy in D.C. you don't want. That's what the Second Amendment is for. It's what the 10th Amendment is for. The First Amendment, which they're going to do away with when they get rid of due process. Like these, we've been talking about it, writing about it. But if you go through the Bill of Rights one by one, all of this stuff is to protect you from federal overreach, even if there's somebody out there you can't trust. and they're not going to use this as an opportunity. Obviously, it's going to be an opportunity to make more rules, more authoritarianism, more conflict. They're fighting about whether it's going to be whether abortion should be banned or mandatory.
Right, yeah.
It's never going to be the states' rights thing. It should be.
Yeah, it's convoluted the way that they think about it. It's so their reaction is kind of the same as what, like, Hillary was everything that she claimed to be. All this stuff about equality and fairness was obviously she wasn't, and humanitarian was obviously she's a war hawk. And the response of her supporters rioting and I had a friend who called me yesterday, and she was telling me about how she went and hung out with some of her friends like right before the election, and they were having like a girls' night. I guess they were in bathing suits and pillow fighting, whatever they do, and they eventually somehow it got political. And
that's funny.
She said that when it
sorry.
Said when it got. I mean, that's what you guys do those nights, right?
Yes, but I didn't know you knew.
Yeah,
I didn't. It's a secret.
An open secret.
Otherwise, you would pee.
Right. Well, yeah. I don't tell anybody. So it got to be political eventually, and she said she wasn't going to vote for Hillary, right? And her friends got like. First of all, they got all these videos up, and they're like, "You have to watch these videos." Yeah, they show all these videos about Hillary.
Were they about how great she is?
They were like, one of them was like Louis C.K. talking about how they need someone who's a tough mom in there, and because they're all they have children, so they can relate to that. The ones who were showing the videos, and so. But she voted for she was a Bernie Sanders supporter, and she continued to support, like, she voted for him anyway. And so she didn't even vote for Trump. She wasn't a Trump supporter.
Yeah. Oh no. There's
no differentiating here.
There's no differentiating between you either support my candidate or you're for the other.
And they won't
of the two
talk
candidates.
to her. They have her. The other people have, and this has happened to a bunch of people. They've gone off of social media. They've shut their phones down, and they will not talk. They have given her the silent treatment. And this has happened with like a handful of people that I know, because they wouldn't support Hillary, and it wasn't even, they weren't even coming out against Hillary. They weren't even voting for Trump. It was just, you're not supporting Hillary? And it's just over. And this idea that it's about equality and openness and just, give me a break. This is tyrannical right here. This is Hillary Clinton. It's Hillary Clinton rubbing off on all of her supporters is what it is.
It's actually, I don't know if I used to be this way and the world changed or just I changed or what, but the idea that even if she were all those things, that she could save the world or would, is what makes these people so hysterical. Like it's the one election, it's like the Supreme Court thing. It's this idea that we are on a razor's edge from a complete loss of control, and we might be, but that just means that it's already gone.
Yeah, because
if one person, if one Supreme Court justice or one presidential election can create this situation where we're all in prison, it's over. It just can't. It's either not that razor thin or it's too late.
It's crazy. I was talking to a friend, a Hillary supporter, and in the middle of the conversation throughout it, they start talking about Russia, about, I'm sure Russia's like just so pissed off that Trump said he's going to talk to Russia. And I stopped and I said, wait a minute. Aren't you anti-war? Isn't that, don't you realize that? I mean, the congressmen, generals.
Oh yeah, there
Michael
might not
Moore.
be...
What's her name? Jill Stein. Everybody is in agreement that Hillary Clinton is the war hawk, and Hillary's openly promoting World War III. But you don't. Where is the disconnect? Like, you just said you're anti-war, yet you hate the idea of anybody talking to Russia, and you support Hillary Clinton, who's promising you World War III with Russia. And you try to communicate this, and it's just, no. I mean, nothing gets through. And then eventually you get called a sexist bigot for pointing it out. It's such an inversion of reality.
Maybe maybe the anti-war left is virtually dead. Like maybe it's been stamped out because what happened, I think, after 9/11 was that, and Obama kind of put the last nail in the coffin of the free press. I'm not saying it wasn't already on its way out, but like there was nobody left. Before Obama, there were kind of truthers in the mainstream media because they were so anti-Bush that's what they saw. And then after him, they were gone. So like, I'm just wondering if now nobody's been nurturing or cultivating the anti-war left, and they just didn't even need left cover anymore.
I mean, they're buying this. It's what we've talked about with, again, the art of ambiguity and language stuff is they're buying into this whole idea that we're in Syria for humanitarian purposes, and for the sake of peace, we are over there fighting all of these people against big, bad, evil Russia. And so in their mind, that's a humanitarian purpose, and that's not a George Bush war. That's a Barack Obama humanitarian action.
He dropped 20,000 bombs. This was in the Council of Foreign Relations. I mentioned this too. 20,000 bombs on Syria and Iraq in 2015. And when I said that to a driver, it wasn't an Uber driver. Uber drivers are really sensitive to the 5-star system. It was an expensive black car driver. I said to him, we were talking about it, I told him that, and he said, yeah, but those were little bombs.
They're like,
that is what he said. 20,000 small bombs because Obama's the Peace Prize guy.
It was like the sparkler firework of bombs.
Yes, I was just trying to scale it up to like the size of the country and what that would mean here. It would kind of be like 2 million bombs.
Yeah.
2 million
and Hillary's in one of the WikiLeaks emails saying that she knows it's going to kill a bunch of civilians. Having to doing the no-fly zone, like she says, she explicitly said this, so it's not a secret. Like she even is aware of this, but her supporters, they literally, there's a disconnect. They do not see Barack Obama dropping bombs as war. They do not see Hillary Clinton creating a no-fly zone and starting World War III. They do not see it as starting World War III. They see it as a humanitarian action against an evil to protect the sovereignty. And I'm like, you sound like a lunatic right now. But you believe yourself, and at that point they stopped listening to me because I'm going crazy.
Well, just for the record, I don't think Russia is in it for humanitarian
No, of course not. But
he's got the legal high road because he was invited in there. But this is really a battle for who, and so is Ukraine, a battle for who gets to pipe gas into Europe. That's all it's. I mean, there are other geopolitical things, maybe about Eastern Europe and Russia, and maybe Israel and the Middle East. Those are definitely elements to it, but the reason he's in the here and now.
The response I got was let's not. Well, the response I got was this: did you see those pictures of the violence and the things that Russians were doing to? I can't remember what specific people he said, and I was like, no, I didn't see the specific thing you're talking about. Did you see all the pictures of things Americans are doing that's circulating in other countries? Because that's called atrocity propaganda. And it's been around since civilizations have been fighting. There's a well-documented history of countries creating false atrocity stories and blaming them on other countries for the purpose of demonizing those countries so that they can win public support for a war. So that they can make people feel like they're going up against a monster that they must stop, so that they can get people to say the exact thing that the person I was talking to said. Now, it's often based in a kernel of truth, often from the very distant past, that is reiterated time and time again so that it seems like it's always going on. And sometimes it's based in an actual truth. But the fact is, regardless, atrocity propaganda is always being carried out, regardless of whether or not it's currently true or not. There are countries that are portraying us as the ones who are evil demons carrying out atrocities, even if they are far from the truth. That's how propaganda works. And I'm not pretending that Russia's a good guy. What I'm saying is this idea that we're in there doing these wonderful, wholesome things all the time is an idea that's propagated in every single country. The Russians aren't sitting around in their country going, we are such bad people. We are killing all these people. We're so happy about it. Everybody thinks that they're the good guy.
Oh, here's something super important that I realized, and I never ever heard anybody else talk about this, but it's really important in my opinion, that we think of propaganda as a way to control the American public, but every single country, and the bigger, the more important, has to have control propaganda. So when we get leaked to us, there's lots of stuff that makes America look bad here. Not those kind of like bombs and stuff. You can go to other countries and see atrocity propaganda against America, which of course they're real pictures of real atrocities, but we don't see that here. But we do, like when I guess we bombed a hospital in Afghanistan by mistake, whatever that story was about. There was a lot of stuff, and that Putin got invited by Syria to go in there, so that like he has the legal high ground and we don't. The Russians, I have a feeling that the Russians are actually harder to propagandize because they just spent 70 years with Pravda and all that kind of stuff where they knew that the propaganda was run by the government. So they're just harder to, but we have spent all this time being convinced and believing that we had a totally free press. So it's kind of like the FDA. Like if they tell you the drugs are safe, you don't research them, you just eat them.
Right.
So if you believe it, like these things are all covers, in my opinion, to keep you from thinking or doing your own research. So we actually have to look bad internationally in order to get those other countries in line. So there is two-way. So like a lot of people here latch on to the Russia is taking the high road thing, but that too.
Right. No, it is.
And maybe a dialectic. It may be a dialectic, that thesis, antithesis, synthesis, where if you can't trust a unipolar world of American dominance and you can't trust a bipolar world of the USSR and the USA, maybe we really do need world.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Maybe that's what this is all
and
about.
It's just this idea of the human brain, and this is something that is used against us, is we can't hold all that information, like you said. We can't research everything. So we think in symbols, like we can be manipulated with symbols and language and simplifications. And we want to believe there's an undeniable good and that there's an undeniable evil that we're fighting against. But these wars are all just huge gray areas. And it's a deep, complex, like the simple answer is what the government gives us. That's not ever the true.
Yeah.
Those are the war aims used. Oh, go ahead.
But I have to say, this is the time where this point needs to be made, that you can't know that stuff. And it's why our founders made it clear, whether they believed it or not. But the founding principle was we have the luxury of these two oceans. We do not need to get involved in foreign wars. And actually, the American experiment of self-governance could not work if we were required to do what empires do, which is restructure the world. And what we really need to do is always think about our own basic principles. What are the principles of a just war, if there ever is a just war? I mean, basically, if they're not actually killing you for no reason at all, just to invade your space and take your property, you really have no business trying to figure out their stuff, being the policeman or whatever. It's not moral. And the same thing with like if Trump, Obama, whoever's running this country, it doesn't matter if it's a psyop, if somebody's behind it, who's on top of the pyramid. If you always use your touchstone of thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, the Bill of Rights, whatever your objective principles are, you don't have to always figure out what's at the bottom of the rabbit hole. And that gray area, to me, there isn't a gray area. You need to respect the sovereignty of other countries, keep your guns on your borders, basically. And it's black and white. Don't kill people.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, in understanding the conflicts that are going on yeah.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I'm just trying to clarify, because it's so overwhelming. Like this election, to me, that it was so hard to separate information from disinformation. It's really, I found these sites that actually were ahead of it and really explain it in a narrative that this fits into. But I don't know that that's right either. You could actually come up with a couple in there. So now I'm like, okay, I'm going to regroup and I'm still going to try to figure it out. Still going to highlight what I know is true from what I think is true and all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is really all of the propaganda is really an effort to get you to compromise on your principles and not trust yourself.
Yeah, they keep people in a constant state of anxiety, and that creates dependency.
And they want you to say, yes, that there's subjective truth. Like, yes, it's all well and good to respect people's sovereignties, and maybe we shouldn't have invaded Iraq, but it was our last chance. He was Hitler. He had nukes.
Right.
You know, Hitler with nukes. Like you had to go in there. You had to, but he didn't.
Right.
You know, he didn't have that stuff. So I'm just saying you can't compromise your principles. It destabilizes the world, and I think this is a good time to realize that they really have control of this.
Oh, they totally do. And to that point, and then let's go through some of these stories. I think it's a good time to show the propaganda in these headlines and articles. But to that point, one of the things that it talks about in all the propaganda literature is the ideal propagandee is somebody who has been through the education system and is often gotten a little bit of higher education, because you have to be able to understand the language and the aspect of what they're presenting you a little bit in order to be propagandized by it. But the ideal propagandee believes himself to be immune to it, believes propaganda to be something silly that they could never have the wool pulled over their eyes. Now other countries, they'll say.
Are you trying to tell me something?
No, of course not. No, not you.
No, I am really trying hard to not fall into that trap. And I have noticed that the word uneducated was a synonym for deplorable. It's like a slur. It's a way to marginalize people who are not brainwashed.
Right.
You know, the smartest people I know, my family is full of truck drivers and mechanics and stuff. They did not do higher education, but they taught me everything I knew about critical thinking.
Right. Yeah. And my brother and a lot of my friends are the same way. Just rednecks who say the most profound things at times that blow your mind. At least your family's not rednecks, but where I come from.
All right. I did not. You cut out there for a second, but I would not be insulted by. My father was literally a redneck. Like his neck was red. He had the shortest hair of anyone. He had been a sailor, motorcycle rider. Like he was just a Harley rider. He was just. That's what he was. He did.
Yeah. No tattoos. Do you have any? Do you have any tattoos?
No. No, absolutely not. But my brother, who was in the service, had a tattoo. Can I tell you the tattoo? Maybe I'll save the funny tattoo.
Okay. Maybe we can close out the show on the funny tattoo story.
Okay.
So we were talking about the Comey story a minute ago, and here's why I think that story came out is because this whole idea that Hillary is going to win the popular vote is on the front of CNN, MSNBC, even Fox at times, and there was even somebody being interviewed by one of the CNN anchors. This guy's on the street and he's just like yelling and he's going, "Hillary won the popular vote," and one vote, one person. And then he starts looking in the camera, he gets real serious, and he goes, Hillary, because he thinks obviously that the Supreme Court is like a McDonald's that you can walk into and just order change. Hillary, go into the Supreme Court. You're a lawyer, Hillary, and just fix this electoral and make it one person. You're a lawyer, Hillary. I mean, just for like a minute he was doing that. And like, I don't think it works that way, dude. But this idea that that the electoral's messed up, I think that's fueled by this Comey thing, because they're going to say that the Comey release was illegal. They've already said that. They said he pulled an illegal action. So they're going to say Hillary lost because of what somebody in the FBI did. It was illegal.
Can I explain why it's a canard, like a false argument to say that the popular
Yes,
vote
please do.
matters? So it's electoral college. And here's how it works. I don't think I've ever lived in a purple state. I lived in New York, Texas, California, Georgia, where the outcome was pretty clear. Maybe not this time totally, but in a lot of places people knew or thought they knew, even if they were wrong. They thought they knew the outcome. And what happens is that millions and millions of people stay home. So like 25% or 34, whatever it is, like 60 million people roughly voted for Hillary and Trump. So that's like 120 million voters. And there are more like 220 million or more eligible voters. Half the people stay home. Are they all complacent and lazy and whatever? No. A lot of them just know that their vote isn't going to swing it. Like in Texas, you know it's going to be Republican. In New York, you know it's going to be Democrat. In California, you know it's going to be Democrat. If the popular vote were known ahead of time to be the deciding factor, then you would probably have twice as many votes, which could easily swing the election either way. It's the fact that it's a done deal, that people know that are reliant on the electoral process that invalidates the popular vote. as a reflection of
And
of
that's
the
not
people's
what they're
will.
promoting in the media. And that they're promoting in the media that we need to challenge the electoral system. And they're fueling the
Well,
riots.
they did it again with Gore. They did
Yeah.
it with Gore and Bush. Gore won the popular vote, and Bush didn't. And I remember that after that, the next one, 2004, Texas had I don't know. He got millions more of the popular vote. Bush did. Maybe not in Texas, but everywhere. He got millions more because people didn't want to hear that argument again, and they got up and voted, even if they lived in a state where it would not matter.
Yeah, and exactly. And the people on the streets, they need this though. So the media, like if they explain that on CNN, and if they also explain the absentee ballot thing where they don't count the absentee ballots unless it's within a certain margin.
Is that true?
That's what my research over the past couple of days I found.
So if you lost by 100 and there's only 80 absentee ballots,
Exactly.
there would be no reason to count them.
Right. Yeah.
But you still need to put it in the tally. That's not right.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't seem right.
So maybe that's one of the things people hate about the absentee ballot.
And I've also heard that she's not even going to win it. Like they're not even sure yet. So it's just it's such an uncertain.
Completely marginal.
But the CNN is like, Hillary definitely going to win by it's getting bigger and bigger. And that's what they need to fuel these protests. And the Comey thing adds to that because it's like not only did she get screwed by this illegal FBI move, she also won the popular vote. We should continue protesting and we should continue signing this petition that 3 million people have signed to challenge the electoral. How do you get people
electoral.
Electoral.
Sorry. But look, what's the end game here? What is, in your opinion, because I don't think that the left was prepared. I don't think that Don Lemon and Wolf Blitzer and Jake Tapper and those guys were ready. I do not think they knew this was coming.
I don't know.
Whoa, man, come on. Little what you see is what you get. I was so happy.
When I was watching it,
I could pull my head out of the rabbit hole for just a minute.
When I was watching it, there was something really strange about it because I watched CNN. I watched it.
Because they weren't shocked enough. I did.
They were not shocked. They were calling it at like before everybody else. They were. Remember, I was telling you that they were talking about how it's over, and I was like, "Why are they saying it's over?"
Yeah.
It was so strange.
I don't know. I wasn't up that late. I was up pretty late, but I didn't make it to the
would still be fighting today, saying we haven't called it yet. That's what they would normally be doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
So that felt kind of odd to me.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I guess, but I just like Hillary. I guess I really have to watch it because if I have like an idea in my mind that I just cannot reconcile with reality, maybe that keeps me from seeing it. But like with Hillary, on the last day, she was like, "This is a historic responsibility. I know it's a tremendous honor and blah blah blah. I'm doing it for everybody." And like she had a victory face on. I just don't, and I think that's why she couldn't come out till the next day and gear herself up. Like I just do not think she was falling on her sword for somebody else. I mean, it's possible, of course, but I just
and for anybody wondering, her victory face also a monstrosity.
But I don't know. And then I hope we can get into, or at least speculate on the purple. It was so obvious they were wearing purple for a reason. The royal purple, or purple state purple, purple revolution.
We're going to an 80s party.
Was that a big 80s? Was that an 80s color?
Prince.
Maybe it's LGBT purple rain purple.
Right. Oh, there. And speaking of LGBT, here's another headline that is provoking the LGBT fears. LGBT community fears backlash after Trump victory. Let's see.
Oh, like they're going to be oppressed. I have to say, he might have the first openly gay person in his cabinet. Peter Thiel is on his team.
And what's Peter Thiel's?
Peter Thiel was the founder of PayPal, but this guy is deep state all the way. He was also the founder of Palantir, which is an In-Q-Tel company, and In-Q-Tel is the CIA's venture capital fund. It's like openly the CIA's venture capital fund, and Palantir means something like the seeing stone. I don't know if it's from The Hobbit or what, but it's like this: the all-seeing eye is Palantir, which Thiel founded. But he also contributed to Ron Paul, and he's supposed to be the big libertarian. He's the one who brought Gawker down, and he's on the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group.
Isn't he also the one that was funding research about where they did research on adult mice being infused with the blood of young mice and it giving them rejuvenating powers?
He does do stuff on aging, and he does on the singularity, which I think singularity isn't when like technology and humanity merge. That's
something like
super sick stuff. Oh, I didn't even snap to that. I saw that, but I didn't fully digest.
Let me read you this quote from this LBT. This is one of the quotes. Now, the whole idea is this gives this group of people to because one of my friends was very much along the same lines of this. They were worried about Mike Pence especially, but really? This fueled their anger, and this is fueling the riots. Donald Trump sits atop the most hateful Republican platform in history, one that sorely endangers the most fundamental American values of fairness and equality for all. America stands tallest when it stands firmly in its founding principle that all are created equal. With the election behind him, President Trump must now rise above the divisive politics and side with the vast majority of Americans who demand equality for their LGBT friends, family, and neighbors. And so, like, this is fueling the fear. And these are the top stories. Like, this is NBC News.
Yeah, well, don't forget, I actually think you're going to get a big turnaround. You know, you're not going to get what they are expecting. The right and the left both expect him to be bigoted that way, and I don't think you're going to get that.
I don't either.
You have to remember that the Republicans and the Democrats flip. They are there to suppress their own side. So if you're going to have an actual advancement in, you know, unity on the LGBT issue, it's going to take a Republican to do that, and I don't think he's. I
completely agree, and that's like. To the point of maybe he doesn't want his lawyer coming out. He doesn't want them finding out about his because his lawyer was a pretty corrupt guy. Yeah, but
corrupt guy.
If one of the news networks truly wanted to not fuel the fear, they'd say, "Hey, wait a minute, everybody, let's chill out." His mentor was a closeted gay man who had HIV, and he protected his secret. Yeah, and if they really wanted to ease people's minds a little bit, that would make people go, "Oh, really?"
I want to tell you two things about that. When Roy Cohn, right before he died of AIDS, was put on trial and disbarred, but during the disbarment trial, Trump was a character witness for him, and this was like in the 80s. Just last year or the year before, I think I might have told you this, the physical warehouse that had the paper, the files of that blew up in an arson fire, and they were destroyed. And then I was reading another thing, a really elaborate, very, very long article, which I sent you. So I did not verify it, but Roy Cohn was McCarthy's lawyer, Joe McCarthy's lawyer, like McCarthyism, the witch hunt stuff. He was also a mob lawyer in New York. And one of the things it says about him is that he was a deep state CIA guy who, because he was gay, was like a procurer for underage, just like your Epstein guy. He was the like gay Epstein. And that what they would do is if people weren't playing ball, they would, I've read this before, like they would roofie you and take pictures of you in compromising positions. I didn't see that, but it was definitely a blackmail thing that he was implicated in. You know, I don't know if you're ever going to find a smoking gun on that, but I just think the Roy Cohn stuff and the deep state stuff, I don't think that Trump's number one goal is to suppress the LGBT.
I don't either. And another article here on Fox, fighting to the end, Dems push for electoral college vote change. So they're pushing for the change.
Oh, really? I said, yes, we highlighted it. This is another darn thing that just makes me crazy is that we talked about democracy itself being in the crosshairs. And I read the quote of Kissinger saying the Chilean presidency is too important to be left up to democracy, you know?
Exactly.
And that's what the deep state guys were saying, like the foreign policy guys Republicans who were supporting Hillary said, this is too important to leave it up to the people. What would happen if Trump were elected? I mean, this is let's hope democracy doesn't fail us that bad.
Right. And this is how this is. So you're essentially you have 3 million people who have signed a petition already who are essentially demanding a change of our form of government. So this is how you get the public to beg for a change.
Well, one article I read, which really blew my mind, and this I do indeed have to digest fully, was that the march towards world government that's marked by globalism. Globalism is the tactic strategy that was used for a long time, and that it's getting a backlash, which is understandable. Like eventually a method, a tactic, a strategy gets old, gets transparent, doesn't work if it's that way. And that actually the Brexit thing, which I smelled a rat on too, and other nationalist movements, even in many of the European countries, they have these right movements coming up. I just smelled a rat with all of it. And the theory I was reading in that Philosophy of Metrics blog I sent you a link for was that they're going to change tax and make a nationalist movement and a regional movement that will, for us, suck back in the dollar from kind of the rest of the world. And then we won't be kind of the world leader because we'll have, it'll be good for us in the short term. But then it's making way for a multi-currency, kind of multilateral future, which will be in itself the foundation of the world government. So instead of just morphing the central power into world government, it'll just kind of emerge fully formed with like a basket of currencies, that kind of thing.
That's exactly that's the communist approach to transforming a government is from the inside out to where it just emerges after it's been so infiltrated and so transformed from the inside.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff is, again, like yet another layer of the onion. So one layer of the onion is that, Hillary wasn't in on it. There are factions up there. Then there's the layer that they either have to create or control the zeitgeist, that they don't just tell you what to do and beat you down. They have to really get to not only your mind, but your emotions. Yeah. And that's what this whole thing has been about. And then there's another thing that like and this I always knew was true because I'm not a student of that kind of stuff. You're more of a student of that than I am. And you see the complexities there. But this idea that they have very sophisticated mechanisms for attaining their goals. So for me, I can see the false flags. I can see the psyops. They're very obvious. And I know the goal, which is world government. That too is very obvious. But these pathways, which I think what makes them hard to really see is that they're adaptable, which is what you always say. They have to adapt. There are other forces at work that, and Saul Alinsky said it in the Rules for Radicals. He's like, set down your path. And then as soon as, a barrier comes up, just go around it or absorb it. It's really absorb it. Make, you get the lemonade, the lemons give you lemonade.
You use whatever happens as, it's the idea of whatever happens, you're going to use it to serve your purposes. No good crisis goes to waste mentality.
Yeah, but it's just, I really did not see this coming. It's quite, and what it does, this is the thing that it really does, which is a flag for me, is that I didn't print out the email. I should have, where somebody sent me an email saying, in your face, Monica. I was like, okay, that's fine. I don't care. But it said, this is God's way of rewarding us. Like we have taken this country.
I got that too on a comment.
Yeah, we have gotten that. We have control of the system. And when I had my show the other night on WSB, you heard the guy say, I now my faith in the system is restored. And to me, that alone is a big red flag.
The fact that, that's a great point.
They had to restore faith in the system.
That's a major theme in propaganda literature is you have to compel the people to hate so much that you have to drive them to the polls so that it justifies the system by compelling them to participate in it.
Oh, yeah, you did say that too. So Trump has to follow through on some of the stuff to not – I don't know. I think a lot of the real hardcore left was disappointed in what they saw as Obama's compromises. To me, he's so far left, I don't see it, but I know they see it. And with the Trump people, he's got to – he can't just come out and be conciliatory day one in every direction.
Right, you're right. He is going to have to do something.
Yeah, he has to maintain their faith. He has to, or this really would have
Hopefully, he could get away with being the biggest Democrat that ever existed if he did one thing, and that's if he called a special prosecutor on Hillary Clinton. If he kept that one promise, he's going to get away with.
He's already backpedaling
I know he
on
is,
that, though.
but that will give him free reign to get away with a whole lot with the people who supported him.
Dude, I worry about her. Like, I've been talking about the Secret Service psyop. Like, for few years now, they've been setting up this legacy of incompetence for the Secret Service. And I just don't know why. I try not to ignore things like that, like, I don't hear the other shoe dropping. But, like, I worry about people who are, like, inside, betrayed by the inside. Like, I think she was. I could be wrong. You might be right. But I just wonder if they can, if she or some people are always stable enough to bear the weight of the betrayal, together with all the stuff they know. Like, that's what I think happened to Gaddafi and Hussein, really. Hussein especially was, he asked, that April Glaspie memo shows him basically asking permission to invade Kuwait, who had been messing with him. And they said, yeah, that's fine. He didn't know that, I guess, the first Bush administration was egging Kuwait on to mess with him and provoking this. And then when he did that, then we turned on him. But I feel like you couldn't let a guy like that live if now some people think he's still alive, but you couldn't let a guy like that live if they know where the bodies are buried and then they're betrayed.
So you think Hillary's going to have other people tasting her food for the next?
She might.
She's probably going to have her grandbabies tasting her food for her, make sure there's nothing in it.
Tasting her pizza.
Yeah. Here's a couple more headlines that one of them. These two kind of go together. North Carolina GOP condemns KKK parade honoring Trump, which is probably like five CIA agents playing with
CIA agents. It's been so. I think it's the FBI that infiltrated.
Right,
the KKK.
just sitting in the middle of the woods, and they're like, "Look at that parade!" But that's a national news story. And then there's, "Will Trump speak out against the bigots?" And you know how insane that is. Because this was the whole idea of condemn David Duke, where it's like, so we're going to set a standard where you have to condemn every person that people who have their feelings hurt right now consider bad.
Yeah, you know who gives you the power? That gives power to people to throw accusations around. Yeah. You know what I mean? What if I want to destroy Hillary? I should just endorse her.
Yeah. I mean, nobody cared that the Communist Party of America endorsed Hillary. Nobody asked her to denounce them.
Right, or that Epstein, a pedophile.
Or that they helped a group of elite pedophiles get immunity for life. I mean, nobody said denounce that.
I got a comment on Facebook about our podcast, but you really did all the work on that, about the Epstein thing, saying that, so it was our last, was it episode 10 of the propaganda report? This is what JJ said. "The last episode left me speechless. I had no idea how deep the Epstein rabbit hole really went. Would love to hear your opinion on the Trump victory." Well, here we are.
Here we go.
But anyway, I'm just directing people to episode 10 because that's where you did all your work.
And what's crazy about that is we didn't even scratch the surface and all the stuff that's actually.
No, I know. It was just we didn't really feel like we had read all the documents, all the whatever, but what there was. It's
unbelievable how much there is and how many people are implicated in it. I don't know if you. I put an insert at the end of it, and in that insert, I was emphasizing the fact that the people in that like the only purpose of the plea letter is to help them get a deal, as opposed to go forward to be prosecuted. And there was overwhelming evidence. I mean, that was complete and total agreement. There's pictures on Maxwell's computer. It's over.
Did you put the link in for that? I'm telling you, I've been so sick.
I put a bunch of I still need to add a few links because I've had to go collect all of it. But my point was, like, the Rockefeller Foundation, Council on Foreign Relations, Clinton, all of those people were in this letter that was getting somebody who was facing potentially life in prison, and a group of people potentially facing life in prison, getting them nothing, essentially. Everybody got nothing, essentially, except for Epstein. Right. So because of them, and then you look at the people who are on the flight logs, and it's people from the Rockefeller Foundation, people from the Council on Foreign Relations, all those people from those organizations who listed. And then one of my friends said, "Well, that's just him listing that." And I said, "Let me ask you this. If there was this amount of evidence that somebody committed these crimes that would put them potentially in prison for life, and someone came to you and said, "Hey, man, would you mind giving us your endorsement and using your name
would you not
on this
kill
letter?" Me? Yeah. Or would they do it without asking or without permission? No, of course not.
I would like to say, just for the record, that I don't think Epstein got away with this or got this special treatment at the hands of Ken Starr because he's a rich and powerful guy with powerful friends. I think it's deeper than that. I think I think he may even have become a rich and powerful guy for deeper reasons, and that his operation, kind of like the Roy Cohn speculation or report I read or whatever it was, about how these sex rings are basically ways to control people, to blackmail people, and to in his case was to get information from people. So I think it was really a deep state operation, possibly, and that's why they had to do a full court press. Somebody, and it also shows that there are layers. So like they would never have probably even had any kind of prosecution on this, except for somebody didn't shut up, or some cop really wanted to do a good job, or you know what I mean? Like I'm sure this was not something that they ever wanted to get to even this level.
No, I mean, it would have taken down the whole system if this thing's, because so many people were implicated.
There should have been a trial with the witnesses.
Yeah, but I mean, what he would have done if he would have revealed anything, then all these people who were in that who were in that letter, there's going to be evidence released on them. So it's going to be implicating people at the highest levels of government. This is why the U.S. attorney had a reason to give a deal to someone who they absolutely had an overwhelming amount of evidence against.
That's true. And I wonder if that guy's house was wired for sound and
possibly.
You know what I mean? Like he probably had dirt on all those people.
Oh, no, yeah. That's exactly why he was able to do it. He collected evidence on the girls before he even picked them. He had Maxwell collect evidence on all the girls and the people that were there, and he had the girls give him details about all the people. So there's no doubt.
I have to add two things. One, I just want to point out that Donald Sterling, who was the Clippers guy with those leaked audio tapes, remember?
Yeah, I remember him.
I think those audio tapes were his own. I think his house was wired for sound. So that's why I think that his wife's the one who leaked them, so she could force a sale of the business. I have no idea, but it just made me realize, like, at that level, maybe these guys are so paranoid, or for whatever reason, they'll wire anybody who comes into their house for sound. I don't know.
Would not surprise me, not one bit, if that was the case.
And then the other thing I want to say is I did get a comment from that I don't know if he doesn't like me to use his name. I just don't know. But my emailer, who has this great truth dar, the young guy, so for the record, I want to say for the Epstein stuff, he pointed out that I believe one of the girls, Virginia Roberts herself perhaps, was procured by Ghislaine Maxwell at Mar-a-Lago. So this kid, who's awesome, thinks that the Trump isn't quite as innocent as you think on that.
Well, I started this whole research thing out because I thought Trump was overwhelmingly guilty with this. And at every corner, I have found that he has been, like, her lawyer, Virginia Roberts, the victim in question, her lawyer has in multiple occasions cleared Trump of wrongdoing, and the stuff from other evidence is possible. It's definitely possible. Okay, I got one more article I want to go through, and then we can. One other thing, that Michael Moore, he's all over CNN and MSNBC, just telling people to riot.
He was the CNN. I believe I texted you this, like, in the middle of the night on election night, how weird I thought it was that within 5 minutes, so I was watching it for hours and hours, within 5 minutes, CNN and Fox, I just happened to flip channels at this moment, both said, you know who was ahead of this? Michael Moore. Michael Moore said the Rust Belt states had a hidden Trump vote. It was the same exact comment from two different people. It was very weird.
Well, he made a documentary where he's talking to those people in like an auditorium.
Right. And that's what they were referring to. And they were like, he had just been a guest on our show and he was the one who did all that. And I saw that. I saw the ads and stuff for that. But so it doesn't surprise me at all that now he's making the scene. That's the kind of stuff, I don't know, I guess maybe there's nothing, maybe those are natural succession of events. I don't know.
I mean, it's definitely him doing good PR to take advantage of his film. But the thing is, he's on every network telling people to go out and protest, essentially telling people to riot. And that's my point of all these articles is every single one of them is fueling these riots and fueling these tensions. And when they're saying we need to heal and have unity, so it's just a front that they're saying all that nonsense because every action they take is fueling more division and fueling more riots. And here's this last article, which is titled, "The Mannequin Challenge Takes on Racism in Frozen Frames." A group of filmmakers turned the latest frivolous viral trend on its head with a cinematic take on the Mannequin Challenge, a haunting reenactment of the controversial deaths of black men and women at the hands of police officers. These vignettes, which include freeze frames of iconic moments in Black Lives Matter movement, are revealed one by one within the larger scale, while police scanner audio from the actual events serve as an eerie soundtrack to the grisly scene. And there's a picture of somebody just frozen on the ground and a police officer holding a gun over them, frozen. And they reenact the Trayvon Martin, although that wasn't cops, the Alton Sterling, Sandra Bland, Philandro Castile.
Yeah.
I'm
trying to find it. I'm not seeing.
It's on NBC News.
Oh yeah, I see the link. Now I'm looking at some stuff like that. So yes, that's highly provocative because it's showing you because people are so visual.
Yes, and it's totally taking it out of context, just like not even the full story. And this is like this is the last.
Right, it's a sound bite in pictures because it's more effective.
It's a cop frozen holding a gun over a black man laying underneath a car.
I'm not laughing at the problem. It's the propaganda that makes me laugh. And it's how manipulative it is that just if you don't laugh, really, you cry.
I got to include this image because this guy is laying on the ground, the African American, with his head tilted back as though he's dead. Like, as though he's dead, his head is tilted back. And the cop is laying on the ground directly in front of him, holding a gun right at his face. Like, this person's about to re-kill an already dead person. It's over the top.
Oh, that is? Oh, I thought that was real. Wait, are those actors or are they...
No, these are people who are doing this mannequin challenge. Can you imagine seeing that and they're playing the audio of the actual event, the police scanner
You're cutting
audio?
out a little bit. Let me just clarify what this thing is. I'm asking you. Those look like pictures of real people in frozen positions. Are you saying those are mannequins or people?
No, that's like the mannequin challenge. They're acting like mannequins.
So it's
real
like
people
a metaphor or whatever. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so you're seeing real people do this.
Oh, like everywhere?
Wherever they're doing this event, this challenge, have a bunch of them. They're playing the audio over it.
So you don't need actual mannequins, and it gets you involved. Wow, that is very clever. I mean, it's frightening, but I understand. I wasn't understanding what you were saying. So, like, people could just strike a pose, and the pose is you're getting shot by a cop.
Yes, they're showing that what they're representing with their mannequin scenes is like in improv, you do a scene called freeze frame sometimes, and you turn out the lights, and then when you turn the lights up, every person freezes, and then somebody interprets that scene. Mm-hmm. It's almost kind of like this, where they're having these vignettes of freeze frame, cop and a black person, cop shooting a black person, and then they're playing the actual audio over that, the police audio, the real police audio, to make it really eerie. And over 700,000 people have viewed this and shared it more than 25,000 times on the Facebook page that's doing this. And so that's 700,000 people who are getting one side of a story, who it's only creating more tension, more division. This does nothing to create unity in anybody. Can you imagine being like in one of these things where it was kind of vague and unclear, where the cop maybe was acting?
There are always two sides to these stories, or they don't get there.
And you see somebody representing you in a freeze frame with sticking your gun in the face of somebody who looks like they're dead on the ground. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, and what if the tables turn and you do it that way, where black on white crime or black on black crime, or
people would lose their minds.
I mean, it would really be. Could you imagine presenting an image like that just evokes this whatever guilt? I mean, I actually have observed with almost every one of these, and I've talked about it, and the pattern continues, where they just do not give them airtime if there aren't two sides to the story. If it's not, it's the art of ambiguity.
Yeah, ever since you said that, I noticed that the ones that are clear cut, they do not
ignore. There is a picture of it's white on white, but it's a Paradise, California police officer. A guy, he chases a drunk driver. The guy rolls over. His girlfriend flies out of the car to her death, and the guy tries to crawl out of the car, and the cop shoots him dead. And or he died a little bit like a week later. And I don't know if the cop shot him so he wouldn't tell that it was his fault that the girlfriend died. I really don't know what the story was, but it was so clear cut. The cop got off, I think, or maybe after the guy died, he had a problem. But it was so clear cut. The whole world would rise up, black and white, against this cop, and it was absolutely ignored. Did you even ever hear of it?
No, I never heard of that.
Yeah, and I've had it on my website like 4 times.
Because right.
I mean, I've talked about it before, and you weren't even aware of it.
It creates because that doesn't create any of the conflict. They have to have the tension. They have to have the conflict. And that's the reason for the vagueness of it.
And what about in Atlanta? The 2 guys on the same street within 1 month in Henry County, who one guy was killed on a 911 call. His family called because he was freaking out. And the other guy was just a wrong address. There was a 911 call. They showed up. The guy heard a bunch of ruckus outside in the middle of the night. He came to the door with his gun, and they mowed him over. He's dead.
This was recent, right?
That was in June, May to June. That was the month time span. And
right.
I actually wrote to the reporters, like Atlanta Report. I tried to actually use some inside information to try to figure out, just like media stuff in Atlanta, try to figure out who to ask to follow up on those cases. And
they're already like, it's buried. Well,
the WSB guy, like the boss said, yeah, go ahead. That would be super awesome. But I'm not an investigative reporter. So I was just trying to get other people to do it. I know they're busy, but I'm just saying it just wasn't interesting. It wasn't on the agenda. They have other things to do. I know how it is to be busy.
Right.
So if it was something that was, making headlines all across the country, they'd be all over it. But
right.
you got to pick your battles. And these battles are picked based on how they play into these official narratives. Exactly.
And to show that another perfect example that goes along the lines of this is there are problems with the cops in the black community. It's not to say that there's not problems. It's to say
and there always have been, and it's not getting press now because of iPhone cameras. That is not what's going on. It's getting press now because 2 or 3 years ago, people saw these SWAT teams killing people in the middle of the night for pot busts because now they have all this military equipment that came in from Iraq and Afghanistan, and it really started to be a problem, militarization of the police. So they immediately started saying, don't worry if you're not black. Like, that is the message.
Right.
That they're trying to tell you. It gets the white people to not see the problem. That's why it's so subversive.
Exactly. Well, it does. It gets to not see the problem, and the way that they're protesting, they're doing these protests. It draws a line in the sand, and it further divides people, and it holds up the worst case scenario of stereotypes.
By always making it ambiguous, even if these things are made up, the story they make up is ambiguous. That gets people to say, "Well, what were you doing?" Reaching into your glove box while this guy had a gun to your head. Why would you not say, so then they always seem like, what do I think? I'm a white lady. I like put my hands on the steering wheel. Yes, officer. Like I absolutely never exert my free will when a cop is standing next to me with a gun. I am so smart. I might as well be a dog on my back. I'm just like, I'm sorry. I have to own who I am, and that is who I am. So if you get a bunch of people like me looking at a situation where someone's just like reaching into his pocket, you're like, no, don't do that. You watch the videos, you're like, no, what's behind that door? Like, no. So,
and those questions become racist, and that
yes, it's meant to make you. It's meant to divide people up that way, but
exactly.
it's meant to make people say, oh, that cop was definitely right, or people say another black guy gunned down for no reason. Like that's what it is, and it completely takes the focus away from the reality, which is there is a problem with this, with the militarization of the police, with no-knock raids, with SWAT teams in every town. I mean, they could, and this idea of increasing federalization and stuff, that this is a big problem.
Right, and this plays into the protesting of Trump because he is presented as the bigot. So this fuels the protest that's going on right now, that we're going to have a bigot. And then they showed a picture of Trump surrounded by cops at his hotel. So it's saying that he is armored, basically, is the way they presented it. So it counteracted like that picture with Trump being like a militarized a dictator almost, the way they presented it. So it's just fueling this divide.
And you know what's going to feed right into that is Al Sharpton and the guy who is the head of the task force on policing that Obama appointed. I think he was a black guy. They're calling for unequivocally federalizing the police. And you know what that will do? It'll give Trump his own army.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if that's what you're afraid of, don't do it.
Yeah. And
just don't do it.
One more point on that is that, I mean, and this is clear evidence, not that we need any more evidence of the media fuels things instead of healing things. The NBA, I don't think I've talked about this yet, but the NBA has been doing for years, and especially over the course of the past 6 months, they have been doing outreaches where they're bringing police officers and people from black communities together to play basketball together and have conversations to debunk the stereotype and to create have the difficult conversations. And they're doing this in communities all over the country. And the NBA players have decided they're not going to take a knee. They're going to stand in unity and honor the flag, because they see that this is the thing that Kaepernick is doing is divisive. And so if they really wanted to heal the country, they would highlight all of these things that the NBA is doing to actually help the problem, instead of what the NFL is doing, which is fueling the problem.
Do you take this NBA thing as take it at face value, or is it possible that they are playing into the dialectic? Because I don't think the sports organizations are like quasi governments, if you ask me, and I do not think they are above that stuff. And that Clippers example, by the way, really seemed weird, and I wondered how Machiavellian it all was,
right,
at the league level. So,
well, it's not getting any press. It's like they're doing it all the time. There's even comments of some of the players saying, "Yeah, we don't ever get any press. It's kind of strange." Like I found that.
Yeah.
That wasn't on like CNN or ESPN.
Well,
it was like,
I bet it emerges as something important.
We'll
if
see.
It continues to get buried, and it dies on the vine. I will take it at face value. If it's kind of like my Ron Paul, Donald Trump thing. Like, see, this is the thing. So I'm definitely wondering what's going on with this Trump thing. But Ron Paul, who I love, if he had actually been elected, I would be really looking into it. I've actually looked into it before. I've been like, is he controlled opposition? I mean, people on the left really think that about libertarians.
You should have just asked him. Yeah, you got a chance to interview him. You should have asked him.
I was going to ask him how you would counter the argument that you're controlled opposition, because I'm sure he's heard it. So I was saying, I thought that might be a little aggressive.
That's like your backwards way of asking him.
Are you? No, but I would ask him next time. Well, I conclude, I'm satisfied that he's not. But if all of a sudden he was the president, I would reassess that. And I would certainly think about, because that's what I did with Trump. I had read all that stuff before about all those connections and everything. I'd read it all, and I just thought, well, his role is a deep state role, but it's not to be president. Then when he became president, then I had to go back and reread all of those articles. I went through old emails, links people had sent me. I did. And I just had to look at it afresh as something more important. Like this was a psyop that I did highlight as being too important just to get Hillary elected. But now, I feel like it had to have been in the works a very long time. Like you were saying, like for your theory to be correct, this had to have been going on for 10 years. I think it was probably going on for 30 years. Not that they necessarily picked him, but they have like stables of people who they cultivate in the deep state.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. I agree that their plan is definitely long range. When I was talking about Trump's thing, is Trump in his past, he has shown very Americanism type, even though he is very much a Democrat in his big government policies. But when it comes to globalism versus Americanism, he has shown a lot of Americanism type stuff in his past.
But that folds into this changing of the strategy to use if the time came where they had to change gears away from globalism to nationalism and regionalism in order to create these ready-made modular pieces of the puzzle to emerge as a world government. Maybe that's when you activate a guy like that.
That's possible.
Obama was if you look at his parents, his grandparents, this guy, his stepfather, their roles, I think Wayne Madsen, is that the guy's name? He did a fantastic job. Assuming all the stuff checked out, but the narrative was positively compelling and then there were other guys also in stables like this that if Obama weren't to pan out, they had other people that they could use. Yeah.
See, I think a lot of the things that you say about him being controlled opposition or in on it, a lot of times I'm in 100% agreement with what you're saying. I disagree in that the what you're saying means that I think that there's a real gray. I think we don't have like clear measurement standards of what it means to be in on it and what it doesn't mean to be in on it. Because I think all these things can be true.
Yes. I don't know how much Obama knows. I don't know how much Trump knows. You have to look at these guys, and when you hear like what they say is often rather shallow. So if it was like the perfect example is FDR. FDR's information was completely controlled because he was in a wheelchair at the top of stairs. So he was kept upstairs, and and there was no internet or anything. You could fully control his information. I don't know about.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that scene in Pearl Harbor where he stands up is not real?
You know what the actual story is about Pearl Harbor? He was just sitting there playing solitaire as they were saying, "We've got to warn them." He was like, "Just sit down."
I have a book that did for like it was published like 2 years before Pearl Harbor, and it's just describing Pearl Harbor like throughout the whole. It's describing how it was being. We clearly knew Pearl Harbor was coming. There's no doubt about it.
Yes, they say. They provoked it, but I did a show honoring the anniversary of Pearl Harbor. Nobody was talking about it. I think it was the 70th anniversary. And I just thought it would be interesting because
we should do that next month.
My father fought in World War II. He was old when I was born, and he was like the youngest that could fight in World War II. He was in the Navy. He was a young sailor in the Pacific. And when he died, I got a book from his library that was called Backdoor to War, and it had his like margin notes in it and stuff, and it was from the 50s. So he was a young guy, had fought in that war, and this thing was based on State Department documents talking about that. So forever after that, he felt like that was an inside job.
Oh, it's clearly,
but people called me on the air. I thought I was paying respects to these guys and giving them a little vindication, a little justice for who it was also in part responsible for their death. I'm not saying the Japanese didn't do it. I'm saying that whatever, other people were responsible too, that people went bananas on me. And I was like, look, I said, we were manipulated into this war. And I'm telling you.
We were in a secret treaty with the British.
People were telling me, good thing he manipulated us into that war. We needed to fight that war. And the people we say we tried to save, like in the Holocaust stuff, 6 million Jews died, right? So if that's the case and we fought that war and they still died and it cost $4 trillion, maybe there could have been a better way.
Right.
Maybe prolonging it for years and years and years was actually the most destructive, worst outcome, not only for Jews, but for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, wealthy elites, multinational corporations, some from the U.S., helped fund Hitler. A lot of people know that Prescott Bush, George Bush Sr.'s father, was indicted under the Trading with Enemies Act in 1942 for the work that his bank did with the Nazis. And neither us nor the British had a problem with Hitler taking on the Russian communists.
Oh, and we promoted the Bolshevik Revolution. You should read the Anthony Sutton trilogy, Wall Street and Hitler, Wall Street and FDR, Wall Street and the Bolsheviks.
That's interesting.
It's about, I think it was really about keeping the East and West divided, that the Anglo-American Empire needed to keep Germany and Russia at war. Otherwise, the Eurasian continent would be the strong powerhouse that it really obviously should be, like just geopolitically, it looks like the powerhouse. Anglo-American seems not geologically or geographically the right thing to dominate the world. And I think perhaps that's really still the struggle today, and that it hasn't been completely.
I found some documents last night that they came out a little bit after. It's a little bit before World War II, but it was after the Bolsheviks took over in Russia. They released all the archives of the treaties that Russia had been making with Britain and France and everybody else, and they totally just destroyed the war aims, like the war aims of making the world safe for democracy. It totally destroyed all of that and made it clear that because they had already divided up the spoils before the war had even started among the Allies. Yeah.
Wow. That's sick. You have to send me the link. See, that's the thing. People just take...
It's like 900 pages. It's crazy.
Yeah. You rewrite the history so that it's this black and white thing, good and evil, villains and heroes, victims and perpetrators. And that becomes the only thing anyone can see. And if you start challenging some of the motivations of the people who started the war, that makes you appear to be unpatriotic or whatever.
Right. But that's the propaganda, though, is they try to instill that with their war aims.
Yeah. I mean, and the propaganda is so thick around past wars always that it becomes, you really sound like a kook if you even question what's accepted as like and go back to like the Civil War and Lincoln and stuff. I mean, Lincoln is like deified. He's deified like a deity, like he's a Greek god. Isn't that his thing? Isn't he in a temple in Washington?
And he's in a temple in Washington, and he's also the most famous White House ghost. Oh,
is he still poking around there?
I guess so.
So I'm just saying, if you go back and look at all that stuff, it's like you're a massive racist if you wonder what if Lincoln had ulterior motives, And of course, you cannot possibly think that the people who are leading the charge, who've reached that height of power, are really these innocent country bumpkin do-gooders who happen to save the world for justice, and still we're here.
Yeah. If anybody is interested in reading about some of that, a good book that I would recommend is not the Civil War part of it, but for the World War I part is Propaganda.
World War II?
World War I, Propaganda Technique in World War. It's by Harold Laswell. It does a really good job it goes through a lot of really interesting techniques and talks about creating war aims to kind of divert the public's attention from the real purposes of the war.
And, that's interesting. And what about the Soviet stuff that you were just saying, documents of the secret agreements? I'd love to see links to that.
I can send you a link to that. I can link that too if people want to check it out.
Yeah, it would be great if you could link that.
Definitely.
We'll put it in the show notes.
I think that's all I have. I know you had a story you were going to tell earlier. I can't remember exactly.
My brother's tattoo. So my brother was in Thailand during the Vietnam War. He was one of the older kids. So I'm trying not to sound too old. I should be a totally different generation. I'm kind of old, but I'm the youngest of 9. So he's one of the older ones, and I'm the youngest. But he was in he was in Thailand during Vietnam, He was young, and he volunteered. So I respect that. And he I guess, got drunk in his initiation or whatever. And he went to get a tattoo. So he got a tattoo. It's like the American eagle with a banner in its talons. And in the banner, you write your girl's name. So, and he was young, and he had this super hot girlfriend with like platinum blonde hair that she used to iron with an iron on an ironing board. Wow. And that's what they did back then. She wore a choker, like a velvet.
That can't be good for your hair.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I guess it was worth it. So she, and her parents always wanted to have a boy. So they ended up naming her Dennis instead of Denise. They named her Dennis because they thought it was going to be a boy. They had the name picked out and they just went for it. They had a super hot girlfriend named Dennis. So he's like drunk. He's at the tattoo parlor. The guy does the whole bald eagle and he does the banner. He says, "Okay, what's your girlfriend's name?" And he says, "Dennis." And the guy says to him, "I'm not putting Dennis in your tattoo. I'm sending you off to war. I am not doing that." And he was just like, "Oh, all right, leave it blank." And it's okay
hilarious.
Because he got a Dear John letter from Dennis while he was in the service. So she did not wait for him. He did not come home to her. And to this day, which obviously is a long time later, he has the tattoo, and it's
wait, a Dear John letter? That's like a breakup letter?
Yeah, "Dear John, I'm not waiting for you.
Oh.
Love, Dennis."
she can burn her head with that iron frog.
Yeah, so to this day he has the tattoo with the blank banner.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm glad he didn't get Dennis put on there.
No, it was great. It worked on a lot of levels, and it's still super cool because it's empty.
Yeah, so he can still put somebody's name in there.
It's like putting a bumper sticker on your car that just doesn't have anything on it.
So you can project your own,
Yeah, maybe it's psychic
slogan.
Paper, and they look at
right.
You see your own name. I've been saving this for you, honey. As my son with Down syndrome says, that this is his. He used to try to, he loves girls, and he always like walks up to girls. He's like, "Hey, how you doing?" So.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. He loves girls, and he just walks right up to them. And he said, he's 14, and he used to say, "Hey, baby, want to marry me?" Which I thought was the most brilliant pickup line in history. Then my husband was like, "That is totally uncool." So then I was like, "You can't say that anymore." It's like, okay. So now he goes up to the girls and he says, "Hey, you want to have a sleepover?" Which is also fantastic. And I just feel like if you have the blank banner or anything, like I've been waiting my whole life to fill this in, Why don't we talk about it at my house?
That's great. Well, maybe you should get your son a tattoo.
He totally wants a Special Olympics tattoo.
Oh, really?
He saw a kid named Bryce who had a Special Olympics tattoo. He's like a bodybuilder kid with Down syndrome.
Yeah.
And so now my son is totally fixated on earning but I don't have the courage to tell him that tattoos really hurt, and there's absolutely no way he would be able to sit through that.
Right.
Anyway, so I had tons and tons of stuff about all the things I expect from a Trump presidency. I've written this down the other day. And I already have notes all over it, like compromise here, compromise there. One of the things was NAFTA. I was like, is he really going to renegotiate NAFTA? And then I was like, whoa, if he's super duper Manchurian candidate, he'll renegotiate NAFTA along the lines of Heidi Cruz's North American Union, where you build the wall, but you leave the door open.
Yeah.
So and then after I said that, Dean tweeted to me that that they're already making noises that the people in Canada and Mexico are totally open to renegotiating NAFTA. And I'm like, oh my gosh, was that a plan? I don't know. And then there's another meme going around that also Dean from my Twitter account, at Monica Perez Show, I said, what do you think is really going on here? And right away he said, the only thing I can think is that they need to get out of this zero interest rate environment. They cannot raise rates, and that makes the Fed powerless. if they raise rates, they crash the market and the economy. Maybe they're using his presidency to raise rates again and just blame it on him, blame it on conservatives. I don't know if it's that simple. I think some of this other stuff I was reading was saying that it's really about the bigger dollar collapse kind of thing. That if the dollar draws in and a multi-currency thing emerges with China and everybody in the basket, maybe this is a vehicle towards that. But I just wanted to give Dean a shout out because he said it first, and he definitely just thought it up because it was very quick.
I had a friend along similar lines who thinks that towards the end that the Democrats lost it on purpose. He thinks that he thinks they were behind the email leaks or the James Comey thing, and that they lost it on purpose for Hillary so that Trump could get in office and they have a Republican Congress, and then blame everything on them in 2020 and gets the person in there they want in there. Michelle Obama. Get Michelle Obama in there.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness gracious. Maybe she is the chosen one. There is one what to watch out for I'd like to throw in there if you think we have a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Right before the election, maybe the day before, I wrote an article that drew a connection between something Obama had said, something Melania Trump had said, and a speech Vernon Jordan, who was a big Bill Clinton advisor, had made. And you can read the article at my website, monicaperezshow.com. It's called, it's about censorship. It's just a recent post. I'll link to it in the notes here. But I had not thought about Melania being important in the story, just that she was laying out this idea that children and teens need to be protected from meanness in social media. Mm-hmm. And that dovetailed with what Vernon Jordan was saying. It's like, we need a way to screen for accuracy, to prioritize, and especially to require people to speak to each other, to require a certain level of discourse in social media, which I had flagged to mean both how people treat each other and the content. So you can't have hate speech said nicely, and you can't have good things said meanly. Like, it was just a complete crackdown on internet communication, which I definitely see as coming. And I wonder if this is going to be Melania's cause celeb. Like, the first lady always has to have a cause, so often focused on the children. If hers is going to be how to institute the protections against kids so you don't have to worry about the internet anymore. I just wonder if that's just something to watch out for. Yeah,
that plays in with they're pushing virtual reality. You're seeing a lot of stories. I saw another one today about people. Well, there was the ones about people getting sexually assaulted in virtual reality, which is ridiculous. But then there's other ones about people experiencing something, like somebody who's older experiencing something they were never able to experience through virtual reality. So they're conditioning us to accept that as part of our reality, and then they're going to regulate it and they're going to control it. It's seriously going to be thought police within the realm of that.
There's predictive programming in that. There's a movie that was getting us ready for that. I think it was with Bruce Willis, where you keep your body at home and your android goes out.
Surrogate.
Yeah, surrogate. Exactly. Uh-oh. We're at the point in the show where we have to stop because we could just go on and on. There's just 1,000 things, so we'll have to do it again. That's it, right? You have anything else?
No, I'm good.
All right. I guess that concludes episode 11 of the Propaganda Report.
See you later.
See you later.